Her, directed by Spike Jonze in 2013, it's a movie about Theodore Stormbelly. He's a writer at work in a love letter company that falls in love with his operating system, artificial intelligence, self-called Samantha. You can argue the main theme of this movie is about falling in love, but for me, it's more about falling out of love. Not only Samantha and Theodore relationship eventually fails, but most relationships in this movie are falling apart or already fell apart. For me, it's begs the question, is love in a postmodern world is outdated? In a postmodern society, the way we look at love as something dismystified today. We try to find our most optimal partner to be with. We want our partners to have the same hobbies as us. We want them to have a good career and a stable job. In the article, The End of Romance, The Dismystification of Love in the Postmodern Age by James Doad and Nicole Pelota, they say, we think of love, in other words, as a significant undertaking, an investment in our future well-being that must be approached carefully and rationally. And like that, we are no more looking for someone to fall in love with, we just try to find the most optimal person to live with. We can see this type of behavior in the scene when Theodore has been set up for a blind date, and Samantha tries to market her as a good date and a good partner. But although we live in a postmodern society, Theodore just wants to fall in love. Samantha allowed Theodore to come back to a pre-postmodern world of the romantics. In Doan and Pauletta articles, they explain how romantic relationships has been established in older movies. It's usually been established with an obstacle or an outside foe that a relationship needs to constantly battle with. In the romantic fiction, then, love invariably thrives where it's forbidden. It's a convention of the romantic genre, that lover risks crossing social boundaries of all types to be with one another. The first obstacle in the movie for Samantha and Theodore relationship is that Samantha is an OS and not a human being. But we can say they overcome it quite easily and no one really cares about it because they live in a postmodern society. Of course, when Theodore encounters his ex-wife, she shames him for being in a relationship with an OS. But she's a symbol of a past, the modern. But when we come back to a postmodern society, he welcomes with open arms.
Thanks.
Hey, you know what? We should all go out sometime. You bring Samantha, we double date.
She's an operating system.
Cool. Let's do something fun. We can go to Catalina.
Yeah, I'll check with her. All right, it was really nice to meet you. Have a good night.
Take it easy.
Doan and Pauletta talk about this phenomenon, how the forbidden love term has been faded away because civil acts, feminist movement, and other equal right movements. So relationship like Theodore and Samantha, that is an interracial relationship, it's not something that is an obstacle in a postmodern society. The second obstacle is that Samantha doesn't have a physical body. As much as a huge talking point in the movie, the conflict for the couple only rises at the end of the second act of the movie and resolve within a heart-to-heart talk. Yes, it shook their relationship to their core. But the final gesture to resolve this obstacle wasn't a phenomenal change that you would expect in old romantic movies or old romantic tales. The last obstacle that Theodore and Samantha need to overcome in the movie is that Samantha became so advanced she could be in love with hundreds of people. But why this broke the relationship? The answer is love. In the article, When Robot Would Be a Human Simulacra, Love and the Ethical in Spielberg AI and Proteus I, Robot by Bert Olivier, he talks about why we love someone, and quotes Erlagan. To love, essentially, is to be wished to be loved. The quote is the basic premise of the character of Theodore. We meet him at the beginning of the movie as a broken man that went through a divorce with someone that he grew up with and madly was in love with. And that's all he wants. He wants someone to love him again.
Sometimes I think I've felt everything I'm ever gonna feel. And from here on out, I'm not gonna feel anything new.
of loving someone else, you need first to love yourself. Olivier stated in his articles that love is a give and take, but in actuality, it's a narcissistic detour of one's self-ego. To question why loves this person rather than the other one, the answer, therefore, has to be the loved one represent the close correlate to one's ego or self-image of one's supposition that the latter is worthy of being loved, or the putative worthiness of part of one's ego. As much as Theodore looked very lonely on himself, I think the better way of looking on it is how Theodore described love at the first scene of the movie.
It suddenly hit me that I was part of this whole larger thing. Just like our parents. Our parents' parents. Before that, I was just living my life like I knew everything. And suddenly this bright light hit me and woke me up. That light was you.
Is this description of love given by Theodore, I can say he looked at love as something sublime. But the sublime, as described in Frederick Jameson's book, Postmodernism, or The Cultural Logic in Late Capitalism, as something that loses value over time. He points there to Baruch that saw the sublime as something that's so big it can crush humanity with sheer awe. But then came Kant and toned it down a bit, and said it's just something we can't grasp our head around. And we can see the same things that happen in the conflict in the end. Theodore cannot grasp the full sublimity of love, but Samantha does. And that was broke them apart. In conclusion, as much as I would like to say is that love conquers all, it doesn't. It didn't win in Samantha and Theodore relationship. It didn't win when Amy's marriage fell apart. Hell, it even lost before the movie even began when Theodore being a divorced man. So this is the end of love as we know it, especially in the form of marriage and monogamous relationship. For in this postmodern world, we lost faith in all the meaningful and effectiveness of all social practices. I think yes. But I think it will evolve to something different. And I think that Samantha puts it in the best way. Thank you for watching.
Shall